You can't sit and negotiate with a union that's in violation of the law.
And their oath.
And their oath.
With those words, President Reagan told the air traffic controllers to be back in the towers Wednesday morning or they'd be fired and face prosecution.
I don't care whether he fires us or not. If he does, it's going to take years to get controllers back in the field.
The union is betting that by holding out in an illegal strike, it can use public pressure to force the administration to meet its demands. And Wallert says the government isn't coming clean with the facts and the figures.
The only raise we got was the same raise as other federal employees, 4.8% in October.
Passengers who've been playing a kind of traveling Russian roulette have been unavoidably swept up in the strike rhetoric.
I myself feel it's a tedious job. A lot of pressure is placed upon these men. After all, many, many lives are in their hands every single day. I imagine most people are in sympathy with them.
They've got the same responsibility as any of the military personnel, and I just don't buy this arbitrary strike.
I have to go for the union, yeah.
Federal employees have an obligation to play the game as other federal employees are doing.
Many passengers who might otherwise support the air traffic controllers' demands say the Reagan administration simply cannot afford to set a precedent for federal strikes. The airlines, on the other hand, are looking at it from an entirely different perspective. Eastern alone is expected to lose $10 million a day from this strike, and airline employees say if it's not settled in 2 to 3 days, they're expecting massive layoffs. At the Norfolk International Airport, Kathy Mitkiff, The Daily News.
We are on strike.
That's how local PATCO President Steve Wallert announced the beginning of the walkout in Norfolk. Then Wallert, surrounded by area controllers, charged the skies are unsafe and said there could be a tragedy.
When the civilian controllers in France went on strike, the French government attempted to run the traffic system with military controllers. Within 72 hours, there was a mid-air collision. I would hate to see that happen in the United States.
But at the local FAA office, where security has been beefed up to prevent any sabotage, Tower Chief Bill Commander says it's as safe to fly today as yesterday.
If it's not safe, we're going to keep them on the ground. We have to slow things down and not handle as many airplanes, but safety is the first consideration, and the operation will be safe, I can assure you.
But many passengers we talked to had their doubts.
A little nervous, but I have to go.
A little bit uneasy.
Meantime, flights were running surprisingly smooth, although U.S. Air was forced to cancel most of its schedule. Other carriers were keeping a fairly normal pace, and so they hope to be able to tomorrow. If you do have a flight tomorrow morning, the Norfolk Port and Industrial Authority suggests you call your airline, confirm your reservation, expect delays, and they add it wouldn't hurt to cross your fingers. In Norfolk, Mike Deason, The Daily News.
We're thinking about having a party sometime.
Norfolk controllers are standing strong in their vow to stay off the job. Despite President Reagan's threat to fire controllers who don't report for work by 11 a.m. Wednesday, local PATCO President Steve Wallert says he isn't worried.
What's the president going to do when we all get fired? What's the United States government going to do when 13,000 air traffic controllers are out of work?
Wallert says it would take years to train enough people to replace all PATCO members, and he once again charged the skies are not safe.
Yesterday they had a near midair over in New Jersey, 15,000 feet between, I believe it was an Air Canada and a New York Air. I don't want to predict there would be an accident, but the possibility exists that there could be an accident, a serious one.
Meantime, here at Norfolk International Airport, officials said about 80% of the scheduled flights were operating. That compares to about 65% yesterday, but still there was plenty of confusion. Airlines are telling passengers to expect delays, and most ticket agents say connections in other cities are iffy at best. Passengers are also being warned to pick up their luggage at each stop rather than depending on the airlines. And some carriers are refusing to board unaccompanied children for fear they'll be stuck in an airport. Once again, if you're flying tomorrow, officials warn you should call the airline you're taking before leaving home. In Norfolk, Mike Deason, The Daily News. The fact that he was jailed was no surprise to Norfolk PATCO President Steve Wallert. The morning the strike began, Wallert said he expected to be arrested.
Do you expect to go to jail?
Yes.
What about the rest of the guys behind you? How do you assess the whole jail situation?
Our members are prepared to do whatever is necessary. They are aware of the consequences, and jail is one of those that they are one of those consequences.
Local PATCO members had two news conferences, one an emotional one with wives and children, and then a late afternoon session where Wallert's wife Connie told reporters she had talked with her husband.
The only thing that I can tell you is that I am extremely proud of my husband, what he has stood up for, and for every member of PATCO and every striking controller in this country.
Meantime, pickets went up for the first time at Norfolk International Airport because PATCO members say they want to show the FAA Wallert's arrest doesn't intimidate them, and they hope to convince other unions not to cross the lines. Former local president Bob Cameron says he thinks Wallert was the first to be jailed because Norfolk has one of the strongest controllers locals in the country.
And it would seem to be perfectly reasonable to assume that if you could break the will of PATCO in Norfolk, theoretically you could break the will of an awful lot of PATCO locals. I think they're finding out that is not at all true.
Although everything about Wallert's arrest isn't known, there's one thing for sure. If the FAA was trying to intimidate the Norfolk controllers by arresting their leader, that move has certainly failed. In Norfolk, Mike Deason, The Daily News. From the moment the controllers went on strike Monday morning, Union President Steve Wallert said he and his members expected and were prepared to go to jail. Steve, do you expect to go to jail?
Yes.
What about the rest of the guys behind you? How do you assess the whole jail situation?
Our members are prepared to do whatever is necessary. They are aware of the consequences, and jail is one of those that they are one of those consequences.
Wallert was sent to jail in Alexandria after he confirmed on the stand that he did make statements to news organizations that he would violate a temporary restraining order against the strike. Earlier today in Norfolk, former local PATCO president Bob Cameron, surrounded by union members and their families, defied the president's back-to-work order and challenged him.
President Reagan, the ball is in your court. There are still 51 controllers standing beside me and behind me from Norfolk. We're hanging tough, and I can tell you this morning, we'll stand here for as long as it takes.
Towards the end of the emotional news conference, Cameron explained what he thought members have gained, even if they lose their jobs.
If nothing else, Mike, we have stood up for what we believe in, and I realize that's a hell of a price to have to pay, but at least I'll be able to live with myself, and I know my friends, my family, my co-workers will be able to very comfortably live with themselves. Perhaps in poverty, but they'll certainly be able to live with themselves.